Discipline is not a choice, it is a weapon, and the man who refuses to forge it becomes the battlefield where others win. Look around you. Most men today are not defeated by enemies. They are defeated by comfort, by delay, by excuses whispered in their own minds. They wake up tired. They promise action, then choose ease. They speak of ambition, then surrender to distraction. Not because they lack strength, but because they lack command over themselves. And in every age, the weak have fallen the same way, not by swords, not by rivals, but by their own undisciplined nature. Centuries ago, in the brutal courts and battlefields of Renaissance Italy, one mind studied power more deeply than most men dared to think. Niccolò Machiavelli observed rulers rise and rulers collapse. He watched generals win wars before the battle even began, because their discipline was stronger than fear, stronger than comfort, stronger than doubt. He understood a truth most men still avoid. The greatest enemy you will ever face is the version of you that seeks comfort instead of command. And if you fail to master that enemy, you will live your life reacting, obeying moods, chasing motivation that never stays. But if you master discipline, real discipline, the kind that does not bend to feelings, you become dangerous in a way the world cannot ignore. Not loud, not reckless, but unbreakable. Imagine waking each day with orders already written. No hesitation, no negotiation, no weakness allowed to grow. Imagine building habits so sharp, standards so high, endurance so relentless, that weaker men fall away before you even reach the halfway mark. That is not fantasy. That is training. That is strategy. That is discipline forged like armor, layer by layer, under pressure, until nothing can crack it. But understand this, discipline is not built by motivation. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the furnace. And most men never enter the fire. They stand outside, wishing, waiting, hoping. But the few who step inside, who burn away weakness, who shape themselves with ruthless consistency, those men become commanders of their own fate. Today you are not here to feel inspired, you are here to be trained. Because what you are about to learn is not comfort, not ease, not gentle encouragement. It is transformation. Forged in the spirit of strategic thinking, inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli, this path is built for men who refuse mediocrity, men who are tired of weakness, men who want command over their mind, their body, and their future. You will not be given habits. You will not be given simple tips. You will be given 6 shifts, 6 mental transformations, 6 brutal upgrades to your discipline, 6 fires that will test whether you truly want power or only the illusion of it. Each shift will strip something weak from you. Each shift will replace hesitation with command. Each shift will forge strength where excuses once lived. And by the end, you will not think like the man you were when this video began. You will think like a commander. You will move like a trained warrior. You will act like a man whose discipline is feared, even by his own weaknesses. Because in the world Machiavelli observed, power never belonged to the talented. It belonged to the disciplined. And the men who ruled were not the ones who wished. They were the ones who executed. So if you are ready to leave comfort behind, if you are ready to stop negotiating with weakness, if you are ready to build discipline so strong, it breaks everyone else, then listen carefully. Train your mind to obey, sharpen your standards, burn away softness, because what comes next is where discipline truly begins. These are the 6 shifts that forge a discipline so strong, it breaks everyone else. Shift 1, destroy comfort before it destroys you. Discipline rarely dies in chaos, it dies in comfort. Not the comfort you earn after effort, but the comfort you choose before it. Every day begins with a silent battle. The alarm rings, and immediately a voice appears. Just 5 more minutes. You deserve rest. Start tomorrow. It feels harmless, but that small moment is where most men lose. Because the first decision of your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Choose comfort, and you begin weak. Choose effort, and you begin in control. This is how discipline fades, quietly. Not through failure, but through softness repeated daily. A man can have ambition, vision, and big goals. He can dream of strength, success, and control over his life. But if his habits are built around ease, late mornings, distractions, avoiding effort, then none of it matters. Because comfort is a slow poison. It doesn't destroy you instantly. It weakens you over time. Your focus declines, your body softens, your confidence fades. Not because you lack ability, but because you chose comfort over growth. The disciplined man lives differently. He doesn't wait for hardship to arrive. He creates it. He trains when he doesn't feel like it. He works when it's uncomfortable. He follows through even when motivation is gone. Not because he enjoys suffering, but because he understands what it builds. Strength, control, resilience. Think of steel. In its raw form, it is weak and flexible. But when it is placed in fire, when it is hammered again and again, it becomes strong, sharp, and unbreakable. You are no different. Without pressure, you stay soft. With pressure, you become powerful. This is the shift you must make. Eliminate comfort that weakens your discipline. Not all comfort is bad, but comfort before effort is dangerous. Comfort after effort is earned. That distinction changes everything. Imagine 2 men chasing the same goal. One waits until he feels ready. He stops when things get hard. He negotiates with his own excuses. The other acts regardless of mood. He pushes through resistance. He executes what he planned, no matter how he feels. One stays average. The other becomes unstoppable. The difference is simple. Discipline over comfort. Life today may not look like a battlefield, but the war still exists. It's in your choices, your habits, your reactions to discomfort. Every day, comfort invites you to take the easy path, skip the work, delay the task, choose distraction. Each choice seems small, but over time they weaken you, until one day when life becomes hard and you are not ready. But the disciplined man prepares in advance. He builds strength when life is easy, so that when life becomes difficult, he doesn't break. That is real power, because discipline is not built in one big moment. It is built in small, repeated acts, choosing effort over ease, action over delay, strength over comfort, again and again. And slowly, everything changes. Your mind becomes sharper, your body becomes stronger, your standards become higher. What once felt hard becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes manageable. And your confidence? It becomes real because it's earned. Remember this, comfort is a reward, never a starting point. Hardship is not punishment, it is preparation. Master this shift, and you become someone who does not break under pressure, because you trained for it long before it arrived. You've learned to reject comfort, but comfort is only the surface enemy. The real battle is deeper. It's the voice inside you that tries to negotiate, delay, and escape effort. Because true discipline is proven in one thing: obeying your own commands without mercy. Shift number 2. Obey your own orders without mercy. Most men don't fail because they lack goals. They fail because they don't obey themselves. They plan, they prepare, they promise change. But when it's time to act, they hesitate, they delay, they negotiate, they rewrite the orders they gave themselves. And in that moment, they stop being in control. This is where discipline breaks, not in thinking, but in execution. A man can sit at night and design the perfect plan, wake early, train hard, stay focused, no excuses. In that moment, he feels powerful, like a commander giving orders before battle. But morning comes, and everything changes. The alarm rings, and a second voice appears. You need more rest. Skip today. Start tomorrow. And suddenly the man who made the plan is ignored by the man who must execute it. That is internal disobedience. And just like in any army, when orders are ignored, chaos begins. Your mind works the same way. You are both the commander and the soldier. You give the order, and you must follow it. No debate, no delay, no mercy. Because every time you ignore your own command, you weaken your authority over yourself. And once that authority is gone, discipline becomes impossible. The second shift is simple, but brutal. Treat your decisions as commands, not suggestions. When you set a time to wake up, you wake up. When you schedule work, you begin immediately. When you decide to finish something, you finish it. Not when you feel motivated, but especially when you don't. That is how self-command is built. Imagine two men. The first gives himself orders, but ignores them when it feels uncomfortable. Over time, his words lose meaning. His promises feel empty. He stops trusting himself. The second man gives himself orders and executes them without hesitation. Even when tired, even when stressed, even when he doesn't feel ready. And something changes. His words gain weight. His actions gain force. His identity becomes solid. He trusts himself. And once a man trusts himself, his discipline becomes powerful. There is a harsh truth here. If you cannot command yourself, you cannot control your life. Every obeyed order builds strength. Every ignored order builds weakness. That is why weak discipline feels unstable. It is built on broken promises. And strong discipline feels unshakable. It is built on kept commands. Stop treating your plans like advice. Start treating them like law. Because laws are not followed when convenient. They are followed because they must be followed. Strong men don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" They ask, "What did I decide?" And then they act immediately, because feelings change constantly, but decisions should not. When resistance appears, move. When doubt appears, act. When you want to delay, go faster. That is the mindset of someone in control. And this shift transforms you. You stop being someone who hopes to improve and become someone who executes. Not sometimes, not when motivated, but every time. Because discipline is proven in resistance, in those small, daily moments where you either obey or you don't. Remember, a man who disobeys himself becomes weak everywhere. A man who obeys himself becomes dangerous under pressure. You've learned to obey your own orders, but one action is not enough. Because power is not built once, it is built through repetition. The next shift will test something deeper. Can you repeat discipline until it becomes automatic? Because the men who win in life are the ones who turn consistency into a weapon. Shift number 3, train consistency like a soldier trains weapons. Most men can be disciplined once. Very few men can be disciplined every day. That is the difference between effort and mastery. Weak discipline is dramatic. It appears in bursts. One hard workout, one productive day, one moment of fire. Then it fades, like a spark that dies before becoming flame. Strong discipline is quiet, but relentless. Not loud, not emotional, just repeated again and again until nothing can stop it. This is where most men collapse, not at the start, but in the middle. Picture a man in January. He wakes early, he trains hard, he writes goals, he feels unstoppable. For 7 days, he is sharp. For 14 days, he still pushes. But by day 21, fatigue whispers. Routine feels heavy. Excitement fades. And then one day, he skips. Just once. But that one break becomes 2, then 3. Then the habit collapses. Not because he lacks strength, but because he lacked consistency. Centuries ago, strategic thinkers like Niccolò Machiavelli understood something many men ignore. Victory is not won in a single battle. It is won through preparation repeated thousands of times. Soldiers do not train their weapons once and expect to survive war. They clean them daily, sharpen them repeatedly, practice until movement becomes instinct. Not exciting, not glamorous, but deadly effective. Your discipline must be trained the same way, not once, not when inspired, but daily until action becomes automatic. Consistency is not about intensity, it is about repetition. Small actions, repeated without interruption, create unstoppable force. Imagine two warriors. The first trains with fury, but only when he feels motivated. Some days he is unstoppable, other days he disappears. The second trains with calm repetition, not dramatic, not heroic, just consistent. Day after day, strike after strike, movement after movement. In battle, the second warrior survives. Why? Because his body remembers what his mind no longer needs to think about. That is the true purpose of consistency: to remove hesitation, to remove doubt, to make discipline automatic. Think of a blade being sharpened. One strike does nothing. 10 strikes begin to shape it. 1,000 strikes make it deadly, but stop halfway, and the blade remains dull. Your habits are no different. One day of effort changes nothing, but repeated days, without interruption, transform weakness into strength. Here is the brutal truth. Inconsistency is the silent killer of discipline. Not failure, not lack of knowledge, but interruption. Every time you break your pattern, you weaken momentum. Every time you maintain it, you strengthen identity. Consistency builds trust between you and yourself. When you act daily, your mind begins to believe you. When you act randomly, your mind doubts you. And doubt weakens action. That is why soldiers repeat drills endlessly, the same movements, the same routines, until their hands move faster than thought, until discipline becomes reflex. Modern men chase excitement, but discipline is not exciting. It is repetitive, predictable, steady, and that steadiness builds unstoppable power. Machiavellian logic teaches, a disciplined man does not rely on moments of strength. He builds systems that force strength to appear daily. Not sometimes, not when convenient. Every day, even when tired, even when bored, even when progress feels slow. Because boredom is not weakness. Breaking routine is weakness. And here is where real strength appears. When you repeat effort, even when the reward feels far away. That is when discipline becomes identity. You stop asking, should I do this today? Instead you say, this is what I do. That shift from choice to identity is where power begins to multiply. Consistency builds armor, layer by layer, day by day, not flashy, not dramatic, but unbreakable. Here are words to carry with you. Intensity starts the fire. Consistency keeps it burning. One strong day impresses people. 1,000 strong days transforms you. Repetition is the hammer that shapes destiny. When you train consistency, you stop fearing effort. You stop fearing difficulty, because discipline becomes familiar territory. Like a soldier returning to drills he has done 1,000 times, nothing surprises him, nothing scares him, because he has trained too often to fail. And once consistency becomes your weapon, you stop relying on motivation. You rely on routine. That is when discipline stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural. But understand this, consistency alone can still keep you average if your standards remain low, because repeating weak effort only creates well-trained weakness, which leads to the next shift, one that separates disciplined men from truly elite men. You have learned to repeat effort, but repetition without high standards creates ordinary results. And the next shift will demand something most men fear, raising your standards so high that weaker men fall away before the race even begins. Shift number 4, raise your standards until others quit. Most men do what is required, and then they stop. Not because they are exhausted, but because they believe good enough is success. And that belief is dangerous. Failure can teach you. Low standards only weaken you. A man finishes a task but cuts corners at the end. He completes his work but ignores small flaws. He hits the target but never pushes beyond it. He tells himself, "This is enough." But every time he accepts less than his best, he lowers the standard he once believed in. This is how discipline fades, not through failure, but through quiet compromise. Now picture 2 men in the same environment. The first does his job well enough. He meets expectations. He avoids mistakes, but he never pushes further. The second man operates differently. He checks his work again. He improves what others ignore. He finishes and then refines. Not because he is told to, but because he refuses to stay average. That difference is not talent, it is standards. This is the shift. Raise your standards beyond what is required, because standards are the invisible lines that define what you accept and what you refuse. Low standards accept shortcuts. High standards demand completion. Low standards tolerate average. High standards demand excellence. And here is the truth most people ignore. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. Goals are intentions. Standards are rules. A man with high standards will improve, even with small goals. A man with low standards will fail, even with big ambitions. Think of a blade being sharpened. A low-standard man stops when it looks sharp. A high-standard man continues until it cuts effortlessly. One appears ready, the other truly is. That difference shows when pressure arrives. Modern life makes low standards easy. People accept being late. They praise half-effort. They excuse inconsistency. And when you are surrounded by that, it becomes easy to lower yourself. But that is where discipline is tested. The disciplined man creates his own standard and refuses to lower it. He asks himself daily, "Can this be better?" And if the answer is yes, he improves it again and again. Because high standards create pressure, and pressure builds strength. Without pressure, discipline becomes soft. With pressure, it becomes sharp. When your standards rise, something shifts inside you. You stop accepting laziness. You stop tolerating excuses. You stop settling for less. You begin to expect more from yourself first. And that changes everything. Because once your standards are high enough, you no longer compete with others. You compete with your own potential. Some people will be inspired by it. Some will feel uncomfortable. Some will fall away. That is normal. Not everyone can keep up with discipline. And they don't need to. Because high standards are not meant to include everyone. They are meant to separate you from average. Remember, average effort creates average lives. High standards create rare individuals. You've raised your standards, but standards alone are not enough, because even strong standards can collapse if weakness is allowed to grow inside them. The next shift demands something ruthless. You must eliminate weakness the moment it appears, before it becomes strong enough to control you. Shift number 5. Punish weakness before it grows. Weakness never begins as something obvious. It starts small, almost invisible. One skipped workout, one delayed task, one excuse that feels justified, and most men let it pass. They say, "It's just today. It won't matter. I'll fix it tomorrow." But that's where the problem begins. Because weakness doesn't stay small. It grows every time you tolerate it. Discipline is not destroyed by one big failure. It is destroyed by small weaknesses left uncorrected. Imagine a man who has been consistent for weeks. He wakes early, works hard, and feels in control. Then one day, he chooses to break his routine. He sleeps in. He delays his work. He tells himself he deserves it. Nothing dramatic happens, but internally, something shifts. A small crack forms in his discipline. If he ignores it, that crack expands. One day becomes two. Two becomes a pattern, and slowly, everything he built begins to collapse. Not because he lacks strength, but because he allowed weakness to remain. This is the shift. You must correct weakness immediately, not with emotion, not with guilt, but with action. If you skip a task, compensate for it. If you fall short, raise the standard the next time. If you delay, remove the cause and act faster. This is punishment, not harsh or emotional, but strategic and controlled, because your mind learns through consequences. If weakness has no cost, it will repeat itself. But if every mistake is followed by correction, discipline strengthens. Think of it like fire. A small spark ignored becomes dangerous. A small spark crushed early disappears. Your daily habits work the same way. Every moment of weakness is a spark. Ignore it, and it spreads. Correct it, and it dies. Strong men are not perfect. They still slip. They still face resistance. But they do one thing differently. They respond immediately. They don't wait for tomorrow. They don't justify the mistake. They don't let weakness settle. They act fast. That speed of correction is what builds real discipline. Because over time, something changes. Mistakes become shorter. Recovery becomes faster. Weakness loses its power, and discipline becomes harder to break. Remember, weakness ignored becomes habit. Weakness corrected becomes strength. You don't need perfection. You need immediate response, because in the end, it's not the mistake that defines you. It's how quickly you correct it. You've learned to punish weakness, but even strong discipline will face something greater. Pressure, fatigue, long battles that don't end quickly, and the final shift will decide everything. Can you endure when the fight doesn't stop? Shift 6. Become the man who cannot be broken. Most men are strong until life becomes heavy. They are disciplined when energy is high, focused when results are visible, confident when progress is fast. But when pressure builds, when effort feels endless, when results take longer than expected, they break. Not because they were weak at the start, but because they never trained to endure. Endurance is the final test of discipline, not speed, not talent, endurance. Picture a man chasing a goal. At first he is excited. He wakes early. He trains hard. He moves with fire in his chest. Weeks pass, then months. Progress slows. Fatigue grows. Doubt whispers. Nothing feels new anymore. Nothing feels exciting. This is where most men collapse. Not at the beginning, but at the long stretch in the middle. That silent battlefield where effort feels endless and rewards feel distant. Centuries ago, minds like Niccolò Machiavelli observed rulers and commanders who survived chaos, betrayal, war, and loss. The strongest among them were not the fastest, nor the loudest. They were the ones who endured. When others quit, they stayed. When others panicked, they held position. When others collapsed, they continued forward, step by step. That is the final shift. You must become the man who cannot be broken. Not by pressure, not by fatigue, not by time. Because life does not test you once. It tests you repeatedly, like waves hitting stone, again and again and again. Soft stone cracks, strong stone remains. That strength is built through endurance, not in one day, but through long resistance. Think of armor worn in battle. After hours of fighting, it grows heavy. Your arms ache. Your breath shortens. Your mind begs for rest. But the warrior who wins is the one who keeps moving despite exhaustion. Not faster, just forward. That is endurance. Not dramatic, not heroic, just relentless continuation. Modern life tests endurance in quiet ways. Long workdays, financial pressure, unexpected setbacks, delayed results. Moments where quitting feels logical. Moments where surrender feels justified. But discipline demands something greater. Persistence without negotiation. You do not stop because you feel tired. You stop when the mission is complete. You do not collapse because progress slows. You continue because quitting destroys everything you built. That is the difference between fragile men and unbreakable men. Fragile men depend on motivation. Unbreakable men depend on endurance. They understand one brutal truth. Time breaks weak discipline, but strengthens strong discipline. Every day you endure, you harden. Every challenge you survive, you strengthen. Every obstacle you outlast, you transform. Endurance builds identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to be disciplined. You become someone who survives difficulty. And once that identity forms, nothing easily shakes you. Because you have seen yourself endure again and again and again. Here are words worth carrying into every battle of life. Pain passes, endurance remains, fatigue fades, discipline survives. Men who endure inherit power. This final shift is not about doing more. It is about lasting longer, holding the line when others retreat, continuing when others surrender, standing when others fall. Because in the end, the world does not belong to the fastest. It belongs to the last man standing. Now you understand the 6 shifts. Not ideas, not theories, weapons. You destroyed comfort before it destroyed you. You learned to obey your own orders without mercy. You trained consistency until effort became routine. You raised your standards beyond the reach of average men. You punished weakness before it could spread. And now, you have forged endurance strong enough to survive any storm. This is not motivation. This is transformation. The kind of discipline that thinkers inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli would recognize immediately. Not soft discipline, not temporary discipline, strategic discipline. The kind that builds leaders, commanders, men who shape their own future instead of reacting to it. But understand this clearly, knowledge alone changes nothing. Listening alone changes nothing. Only action builds discipline. Only repetition builds power. Only endurance builds legacy. So when this video ends, your real test begins. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Choose the hard action. Execute the difficult task. Follow the order you gave yourself. No delay, no excuses. Because discipline is not built in comfort, it is built in motion. And if this message lit something inside you, if you felt the weight of these shifts, then act now. Subscribe if you are ready to train your mind daily. Return to this message when weakness appears. Share this with the man who needs discipline more than motivation. Build your standards, strengthen your endurance, command your future. Because the world respects disciplined men, but it remembers unbreakable ones. And now, carry this final command like an oath. From this day forward, I do not wait for strength, I become it.